our precious 10 minutes got wasted, so we'll have to carry out a little bit faster. So the external or internal surroundings of our human beings comprise of environment which play a crucial role in our health and well-being and productivity. The way we live by reflects in our surroundings and directly impacts the lives of all the living beings around us. Therefore, the study of environmental factors and their impact on human health is extremely important. Next. So the learning objectives of our today's class are important definitions, brief review of part 3 of this lecture series, and then although we covered all of the aspects related to the water pollution, we couldn't basically due to the shortage of time, we couldn't cover the wastewater treatment methods. So I had the obligation, the moral obligation as a teacher to cover the wastewater treatment methods as well. Because if I keep talking about the pollution, water pollution, and the problems, then I have to give the solution of the problems as well. At least I have to give knowledge about the solution of the problem. So if we are getting a sewage, a wastewater, a ton of wastewater, then we should know how this wastewater gets treated in modern wastewater treatment facilities. Then after the discussion of the wastewater treatment, we will go to the solid waste and refuse, different types of refuse and solid waste. And then next, please. And then various methods of solid waste disposal, then fecal-borne diseases and healthy habits, and the way forward for human beings. So these are today's learning objectives. So we will discuss the wastewater treatment method. We will discuss the solid waste management. We will discuss various methods. We will discuss what is called a solid waste and what are the types of solid wastes which are created in our communities, then various methods of solid waste disposal, then fecal-borne diseases, then healthy habits, and the way forward for human beings. Next. Next, please. Go to the definitions. So we already know that this definition is the base of our learning. That's why I do not remove it from my lecture series. The environment, the complex of physical, chemical, and biotic factors such as climate, soil, and living things that act upon an organism or an ecological community and ultimately determine its form and survival is our environment. The area of our living, where we live, whether it's a psychosocial interaction area, whether it's a physical environment, whether it's a social environment. So basically, the area where we live in is our environment. And then the environmental health. According to WHO, environmental health is a branch of public health science which deals with those aspects of human health, including quality of life, that are determined by physical, biological, social, and psychosocial factors in the environment. It also deals with the study of those factors in the environment which potentially affect adversely the health of present and future generations of human beings. So I hope everyone around us knows the basic definition of environmental health because it's been repeated again and again. Next. So brief summary of our previous lecture. This brief summary is given for those people who could not entirely attend the previous class or who do not remember the exact table of contents of our previous class. So by giving you the brief summary of our previous class, we can easily gain the understanding of what we talked about previously and what we are going to talk about now. So in previous class, we discussed the basic definitions, the definition of safe and wholesome water, daily requirements and uses of water. Kindly go back to the previous screen. Main five causes of water pollution were discussed, categories of water pollution were discussed, brief review of health impacts of water pollution was discussed, and then in the end, we discussed the plastics pollution problem. So all of the problems were discussed in our previous class. So in our previous class, we discussed all of the water related problems, and now we are gonna discuss the solution to the water pollution. What is the solution? As we discuss the problems, we have to discuss the solution as well. So modern wastewater treatment methods. This section will throw some light on the wastewater treatment methods being used in the major urban centers of developed world. Next, please. So how does a wastewater treatment system works in urban center? Water treatment, the process, it's the definition, the process of removing physical, biological, and chemical substances from municipal or industrial wastewater is called wastewater treatment. So what is wastewater treatment? The process of removing physical, biological, and chemical substances from municipal or industrial wastewater is called wastewater treatment. So whenever we are removing all the unnecessary substances from the water which have been added due to our human activity, then removing all of these substances through a designated facility is called wastewater treatment. All of the major cities around the world have wastewater treatment facilities installed all around the city centers, which treat the wastewater before releasing it back into our environment's natural waterways. So basically, all of the cities. Next, please. So basically, all of the cities, all of the major urban cities all around the world are using the wastewater treatment facilities for the management of this mm, sewage water or management of the wastewater problem. So water treatment process. The water treatment process basically starts with the sewage system. Any city which has a proper sewage system installed can have a water treatment facility attached to it. If there is no proper sewage system installed to any city or any urban center or any town, you cannot start the process of wastewater treatment. You cannot build up a wastewater treatment plant. You cannot build a wastewater treatment plant without having a proper sewerage system. So first of all, you need a sewerage system which collects all of the wastewater from residential area. Then it collects all of the wastewater from municipal areas. Then it collects all of the wastewater from the industrial areas, and this wastewater then goes to the water treatment facilities. So cities and towns all around the world have sewerage systems installed which collect and carry the wastewater from homes, offices, and factories, etc., to the wastewater treatment facilities, where the wastewater gets treated and is then disposed into the environment's natural waterways. So in this diagram, you can see the sewerage system, and this sewerage system is then going into the wastewater treatment facilities. Here on the top left bottom left corner of the diagram, you can see the bar screens. So these bar screens are basically the start of the wastewater treatment facility. Next, please. So various steps of water treatment process. So it's in the I can show you the various steps of the water treatment process. First of all, there kindly go back to the previous slide. So first of all, there is pre-treatment, then there is primary treatment, then there is secondary treatment, then there is tertiary treatment. So whenever the wastewater, so this diagram is basically a diagram of a water treatment facility. A water treatment facility which works in tandem. All of the chambers, all of the zones of the water treatment facilities work in tandem and step by step to create a system which gives us purified air at the end of the tunnel. So first of all, whenever sewage or wastewater comes into a water treatment facility, it goes into the pre treatment area, then it goes to the primary treatment area, then it goes to the secondary treatment area, then it goes to the tertiary treatment area. So what is pre-treatment? Whenever any wastewater goes into the wastewater facility, it goes into the pre-treatment area, and pre-treatment area has bars installed. It has bars installed. Next, please go to the next image, please. So, pre-treatment area has metal bars installed, and this process basically controls the entry of larger size objects into the wastewater treatment facility. The process of pre-treatment involves the use of metal bars in the pathways of the sewage water, which effectively removes large size metallic, wooden, or plastic objects. So basically, there are metal bars in the pathway of water. These metal bars basically remove the metallic, wooden, or plastic objects from the wastewater so that these large objects do not hinder further treatment process. So first of all, whenever wastewater starts entering a water treatment facility, the metal bars are installed in the pathway of that sewage or wastewater so that all of the larger size plastics, metallic objects, or stones or wooden parts or whatsoever, any large physical object is basically stopped right at the pre-treatment facility so that only smaller size objects and the actual waste materials go into the wastewater treatment facility. So this is pre-treatment of the water. Next, please. So primary treatment of wastewater. So the primary treatment of wastewater involves a grit tank and a settling tank or sedimentation tank. So these two tanks involved are basically involved in the primary treatment process of the wastewater. After pre-treatment, the fluid is flowed through the grit chamber with the small sized heavier objects such as stones and pebbles, a heavy sand particle extra settle down at the bottom of the tank due to very slow moving water. So basically, the speed of the water is very slow in a water treatment facility. It's not like a river flowing, or it's not like a stream water. It's a very large tank. It's a very large reservoir. At one end the water is entering, and at the other end the water is leaving, but basically the reservoir itself is very large, and the overall net movement of water is very slow. So whenever the pre-treated water, which is devoid of all larger physical objects, the pre-treated water, whenever it enters the grit chamber, all of the smaller size stone particles, all of the heavier sand particles or pebbles, etc., they settle down due to the gravity. So all of the sand and pebbles and stones, they settle down due to the gravitational effect. And when these stones and pebbles and heavier sand particles settle down, then the water is then entered and is flown through. Previous slide, please. I have to tell some other thing as well about the settling tank. Previous slide, please. So then the fluid is flown through the settling tank or sedimentation tank, where heavier particles such as species are allowed to settle down at the bottom of the tank, forming sludge. So basically, the stones and the pebbles and everything heavier was caught up in the bottom of the grid chamber, and now the fluid is flown through the settling or sedimentation tank, where further heavier particles, such as feces, are allowed to settle down at the bottom of the tank, forming sludge. So sludge is basically semi-solid slurry of wastewater, a semi-solid slurry of wastewater containing majority of organic waste material that settles down at the primary treatment process. So after the next slide, please. So after this primary treatment process, then the water is enter into the aeration chamber. So aeration chamber or aeration tank receives a clear liquid, relatively clear fluid, relatively clear water, because the gravitational effect of the grid chamber and the settling or sedimentation tank have removed most of the waste materials from the water. And in the settling tank, the soaps and oily substances and greases go to the top of the tank, forming scum, while the feces, etc., settle down at the bottom of the tank, forming sludge. So basically, what happens in the settling tank, that there are two divisions, there are two kinds of waste materials that are settling in the settling tank. One is the soaps, oily substances, and greases. They tend to go up because they are lighter than the water, they are less dense than the water. So basically, they tend to go above the surface of the water and they form the scum. While the heavier objects such as human feces or animal excreta, they settle down at the bottom of the tank, forming sludge. The scum is then removed from the settling tank via the skimmer. A skimmer is a device which removes the scum or these oily layers or these greasy layers from the surface of the water. So the scum is then removed from the settling tank via the skimmer, while the sludge will be moved to the digester chamber, which we will discuss in next section. So scum is removed by the skimmer. Skimmer removes the scum from top of the water surface, and sludge goes down to the bottom, and it will be fed down to the digester chamber, and we will discuss about the digester chamber later. The remaining slow-moving water, free of scum and sludge, largely becomes clear water, as I told you people earlier. The remaining slow-moving water, free of scum and sludge, largely becomes clear water, which is further fed into the next chamber, which is aeration chamber. Next, please. Secondary treatment. So no, whenever the water enters the aeration tank or aeration chamber, we call it secondary treatment of wastewater. So in secondary treatment, the clear water from the sedimentation tank or settling tank is then moved into aeration chamber, where air containing oxygen, definitely air contains 21% oxygen. So where air containing oxygen is blown through the wastewater. So the sedimentation tank or settling tank remove the scum and sludge of the water. Now the water has become relatively clear liquid. Now this clear liquid is full of organic waste. Now, in order to digest these organic wastes, we use this aeration chamber. So what is the biological perspective behind this aeration chamber? We aerate the aeration tank for the aerobic bacteria to grow exponentially. So the air helps aerobic bacteria present in the wastewater to digest almost all of the organic waste, food waste, remaining feces, and other organisms of the water, thus making the water clear of organic wastes as well. So whenever we instill the air in through the liquid, through the water, there is exponential growth. There is exponential growth of the you can say bacteria, the aerobic bacteria, and these aerobic bacteria start eating everything: food waste, species, other organisms, and they almost eat all of the organic materials in the in the water present in the aeration chamber, and this water then becomes almost clear of the organic base. Next, please. Next slide, please. Do not see. Okay, thank you. Secondary treatment of wastewater continued. So after the treatment with air in aeration chamber, the water is then moved next to the clarifier chamber, where remaining sludge, now called the activated sludge. So basically, after moving from the aeration tank, there is a chamber called the clarifier tank or clarifier chamber. So the sludge which is now being created by the aerobic bacterial activity now becomes the activated sludge. Now this activated sludge is again allowed to settle down via gravity in the clarifier chamber. So we are again giving the water a chance to divide itself of all of the, you can say, solid materials, all of the human waste and solid materials. So whenever this activated sludge goes into the bottom of clarifier, it the water becomes more clearer. So whenever the water becomes more clearer, the purification process is becoming almost complete. So this activated sludge, along with the sludge obtained from the settling tank, is then moved to the digester chamber, where anaerobic bacteria digest the sludge, which is then thrown out to the sand drying beds to let the remaining sludge dry. So basically, the sludge we obtained from the sedimentation tank in the primary treatment process, and this activated sludge which we are now getting from the clarifier tank, both of these sludge are then fed into the digester chamber, and this digester chamber is not fed with oxygen, is not fed with air. So this digester chamber basically, you can say this digester chamber basically contains anaerobic bacteria. So all of this sludge is then, which is then fed into the digester chamber. This digester chamber is full of anaerobic bacteria. So these anaerobic bacteria further degrade the sludge, and in the process of degradation, the biogas, the methane, is produced, which can also be used as a fuel. So this treatment process also creates one byproduct, and that is the biogas, which is produced in this digester chamber under the action of anaerobic bacteria. So always remember that this digester does not contain oxygen inlets. It does not contain oxygen inlets because we want to grow the anaerobic bacteria. So all of the anaerobic bacteria then further digest down, further break down the activated sludge from the clarifier tank and the simple sludge from the sedimentation tank, and then there is you can say there is a material created from this digester chamber that is called compost, which is then thrown out into the open environment in sand drying beds, and when it gets dried up, then it is moved moved via trucks or via lorries to the fields and to the agricultural land, and it can be used as a very good fertilizer to grow up plants. So next, please. There is a delay in. Yeah, okay. So now we come down to the tertiary treatment of wastewater. After the water is moved from the clarifier chamber, it is entered into the disinfectant chamber, where it is chlorinated. So chlorine gas is a strong oxidizing agent which kills almost all of the living organisms in the water which are pathogenic. It also removes harmful phosphorus compounds as well. So this is a tertiary treatment process. Although we are getting clear water at the end of the clarifier chamber, we know that, but that clear water is not healthy for uh, intake for human beings or animals because it is full of pathogenic bacteria. It is full of pathogenic microorganisms. So we need to kill all the microorganisms that we ourselves created, that we ourselves grew to clear the liquid, but now they have become a health hazard. So we chlorinate the water, the clear water that we are getting from the clarifier chamber. We chlorinate that clear water and in a chamber that is called disinfectant chamber. So the chlorine gas is a strong oxidizing agent. It kills almost all of the living organisms present in any liquid through our free radical formation. We will not go into the chemistry of how chlorine acts because it will be out of the scope of our today's topic. But uh, to understand the basics, chlorine is an oxidizing agent. Gas is a very strong gas, and it almost instantly kills all the microorganisms present in any liquid by a strong oxidizing action. The water, which is chlorinated and disinfected, is then allowed to re-enter the natural waterways of our environment. So here, the tertiary treatment of wastewater ends. Next, please. So now we can move to the second part of our lecture, and that is solid waste and its management practices. Although we discussed all of the pollution related problem in the previous lecture, but we couldn't discuss how the wastewater gets treated. So it was my obligation to teach you all about the wastewater treatment facility, a modern wastewater treatment facility. There are many other methods of the wastewater treatment as well, but these days, this is a standard wastewater treatment plant. That is how it works. So I showed you each and everything related to the treatment process of the wastewater in a shortest possible time because we wasted 10 minutes at the start of our lecture. So now we come to the second part of our class, and that is solid waste and its management. Next, please. This section will focus on the topic of solid waste and refuse and its management practices. Solid waste and refuse. So refuse is a broader overarching term which is often used interchangeably with the word waste. But in reality, refuse is the term used for such waste materials or leftovers which can be reused or recycled as well. Waste materials refer to such leftover things which cannot be reused or recycled, such as rotten food. We cannot recycle rotten food materials because they are almost always full of pathogenic worms, pathogenic bacteria, fungi, etc. So anything which is beyond the tipping point of being able to be reused or recycled, that is called a waste, an utter waste. So a refuse is a synonym with waste. A refuse is also a synonym word with waste, but we call refuse to be anything which can or cannot be used. So basically, refuse is a broader term which can be used for metallic objects as well, which can be used for paper products as well. We know we can recycle the metallic objects, we can recycle the waste paper products as well. So solid waste refer to useless unwanted materials which are generated due to human activities in residential, industrial, or agricultural areas. Next, please. So types of refuse and solid waste. So there is street or domestic refuse. I will not waste my time over this slide because this is just a reading slide. Contains street or domestic refuse contains papers, edible products, waste, leaves, straws, baby diapers. Previous slide, please. Let me read it at least. Market refuse, it contains vast quantities of paper, rotten vegetables, and fruits and animal waste from slaughterhouses, then refuse from stables or livestock farms. Then there is industrial refuse. Now you can go ahead to the next slide. So industrial refuse may contain toxic chemicals and may not contain toxic chemicals as well. So there's then refuse from stable or livestock farms as well, which contains basically the manure of the animals, and it also contains the leftover feeds of the animals as well. So various methods of solid waste disposal. This is the most important part of solid waste disposal methods. So methods of solid waste disposal. There are many methods basically all around practice all around the world, but there are standard six methods which are being used almost in every part of the world. So basically the most important six methods which are being used in almost every part of the world. I included these things. So first of all, it's open dumping. Dumping. Simply we dump. Then there is controlled shipping or sanitary landfills. Then there is composting. Then there is burial pits basically. Then there is incineration, and then there is manure pits. Next, please. So dumping method. It is basically the method of underdeveloped world. So all of the underdeveloped world, including my countries, parts of my country as well, use this open dumping method. So in this method, refuse is openly dumped into low-lying areas, partly as a method of reclamation of land. So basically, they have depression in land, and they want to fill that depression. So what do? They start putting waste materials into that depression to fill that depression of land, which is not a good practice at all. But this open dumping method is being used almost all of the developing countries, or in almost all of the underdeveloped world. So this method we will discuss. So in this method, refuse is openly dumped into low-lying areas, partly as a method of reclamation of land, but mainly as an easy method of dry refuse. As a result of bacterial action, refuse mass decreases considerably in volume and is converted gradually into humus, the organic component of soil, formed by decomposition of leaves or and other plant or animal materials by soil organisms. So basically, humus is the organic component, decomposed organic component of soil. So open dumping method does help us in creating humus for the environment, but it has very shortcomings as well. The problem with this method is presence of plastics in the waste material which do not decompose at all. It is source of smell and unsightly appearance, and refuse is exposed to flies and rodents and birds as well. So all of the flies and rodents and birds then carry diseases to other parts of the areas from these dumping sites. The are also dispersed with the wind as well. So open dumping method, although this is being used in almost all of the developing countries or underdeveloped world, but it has its shortcomings or it has its cons. So we have to discuss the cons of all the waste treatment methods. So this waste management method, solid waste management method is not a good method, but it is being practiced all around the world. Next, please. Can you hear me? Kindly next slide, please. Okay. So there is another method called control tipping or sanitary landfills. So control tipping differs from ordinary dumping. In this method, the waste material is placed in a trench or other prepared area of land, adequately compacted and covered with earth at the end of the day. So it is basically a form of dumping, but it is closed dumping. So controlled tipping is basically a dumping method, but it is closed dumping, where we not only dump in a proper designated site, we dump and then we compact it and then we cover it as well. So when we cover it, there are advantages of after covering things up. There are three methods which are used in this operation. The trench method, it is used where ground is where level ground is available. So where there is level ground, we use the trench method. A long trench is dug out 2 to 3 meters deep. Next slide, please. And 4 to 12 meters wide. The refuse is then dumped in the trench, compacted and covered with excavated earth. So basically, we dig up a trench and we fill that trench with waste. Then we compact that waste material in the trench. And then at the end of the day, or 3 days a week or 2 days a week, we cover that compacted waste material with the soil. And the covering has its benefits. Whenever we cover anything, the flies cannot go to the dump site. The birds cannot go to the dump site and feed on the things. The rodents cannot enter that dump site because it has been covered, it has been sealed off. So there is another, the ramp method. This method is well suited where land is moderately sloping. Some excavation is done to secure the covering materials, but overall the principle is same. So the ramp is created in a place where there is the land is not level. There is some degree inclining plane to the land. So basically, some mountainous region or some hilly area. So we use the ramp method. And then there is the area method. This method is used for filling land depressions and clay pits. The refuse is deposited, packed, and consolidated in uniform layers up to 2 to 2.5 meters deep. Each layer is sealed on an exposed surface with a mud cover at least 30 centimeters thick. Such sealing prevents infestation by flies and rodents. So basically, all of these are landfill methods. All of these are sanitary landfills, but there are different techniques according to the conditions of the lands or area. Next slide, please. So there is the image of the trench method, and then there is image of the area method. The area method is using the normal depressions in the land to their benefit. So there is sanitary landfill schematic diagram. So basically, any sanitary landfill is a sealed off area. It cannot go down below to the groundwater to contaminate the groundwater. So there is a sealed area. Then there is a well, groundwater monitoring well as well. Then there is methane gas recovery well as well. Covering soil is present. Then it is layered, it is compacted. There is leachate collection pipe. So leachate is basically semi-solid liquid which is created after the it is basically sort of sludge because it is created after the action of anaerobic bacteria on the organic waste present in the landfills. So leachate collection pipes are there, and the composite lining system is there so that this landfill and the hazardous materials present in the landfill do not go deep down to the underground water table. So basically, this is an ideal sanitary landfill schematic diagram. Next, please. So then there is another process called incineration. So incineration is waste treatment process that involves the combustion of organic substances contained in the waste materials. Incineration and other high temperature waste treatment systems are described as thermal treatment. Incineration of waste material converts the waste into ash, gases, and heat. Next slide, please. Incineration is used when suitable land for landfills is not available or in case of hazardous hospital or laboratory waste, which are dangerous to be put alongside domestic waste. So we incinerate the waste instead of putting such hazardous waste into the landfills. We incinerate such hazardous waste. Then there's the most important thing, the most important part of our eco-friendly waste management practice, and that is composting. It is a very healthy habit, and all of the eco-friendly gardeners use it to their benefit. So basically, what do they do? Composting is a method of combined disposal of organic refuse and sludge, which is a semi-solid slurry that is produced from wastewater treatment facilities, etc. It is a natural decomposition process where organic matter is broken down under bacterial or fungal action, resulting in formation of relatively stable humus. So basically, this humus, which is created via the composting, This humus then becomes a very good fertilizer for the plant. So basically, all of the organic waste that we are creating in our homes, the peel of the fruits, the peel of the vegetables, the rotting food at the table, anything which is organic waste, we can compost that organic waste, convert it into humus, convert it into a compost, and reuse it as a fertilizer for the plant. So it is a very healthy and eco-friendly method of waste management. Then there are manure pits and burial methods. So basically, these manure pits and burial methods are used in livestock farmings or animal husbandry farms. So the problems of refuse disposal in rural areas where livestock farms are present can be easily solved by digging manure pits by individual households or individual farms. The garbage, cattle dung, leaves, paper straws should be dumped into manure pits and covered with soil after each day's dumping. In 5 to 6 months' time, the refuse is converted into manure and it can be returned to agriculture fields as a fertilizer. So basically, they put all of the manure, all of the organic waste into a pit and waste for 5 to 6 months and wait for 5 to 6 months and then remove that material after 6 months and use it as a fertilizer. So basically, all the waste that is being created on any farm or any animal husbandry area or any cattle ranch can be used as a fertilizer without creating health hazard for the environment in just 5 to 6 months time. Next, please. It's taking time. I do not see the next slide. So now we are almost about to end our lecture. So we are about to discuss the fecal-borne diseases. So these diseases occur due to the viruses, bacteria, fungi, and parasites that can spread through fecal oral transmission. So what is fecal oral transmission? If humans consume water or food that is contaminated with feces of a diseased person or animal, it is highly likely that the human being consuming that water or food will contract that disease as well. So basically, if we are consuming any food material or any water material which has been contaminated with feces of a diseased person, we are highly likely to contract that disease the person is suffering from. The point is that organism has to be released into the feces of the diseased persons. There are diseases where the diseased person releases the viruses, bacteria, or protozoa, or worms, whatever, through their feces. And then, if those feces contaminate the surrounding areas, all of the people can get ill. And there are many examples of widespread contaminations of fecal-borne diseases and people getting sick due to poor sanitation. So viral diseases include polio, hepatitis A and E, viral diarrhea such as rotavirus. Bacterial diseases include typhoid, which is a very common disease in underdeveloped world and developing countries. Then there is cholera. There have been cholera outbreaks in all around the world, especially in Yemen in previous couple of years. Then there has been dysentery outbreaks all around the world, including America as well. Then there have been anthrax outbreaks. Then there are some protozoal infections which are also shed in the feces of diseased person, and it includes amoebiasis or giardiasis. And then there are examples of worm infestations, Escherichiasis, lumbricoides, enterobiasis, and many other worms which are also shed in the stools of the diseased person, such as liver flu, hookworms, and etc. etc. And Xylostoma duodenale is another worm which is released into the atmosphere through the feces of the diseased person. So basically, all of these fecal-borne diseases I am discussing here are, are important because we get these fecal-borne diseases now and then due to the poor sanitation practices in our surrounding. Next, please. So control of fecal-borne diseases and healthy habits, prevention and control include basically we have to prevent and control by working with the health departments of the respective areas. Then adequate treatment of cases should be there because the diseased person keeps shedding these viruses, bacteria, or fungi or whatever through their feces as long as they are not treated. So provision of safe drinking water should be there. Then proper disposal of human excreta, feces, and hand washing following defecation should be encouraged, including children, cleaning and cooking of local foods, example, raw vegetables, to avoid eating food contaminated with feces. Then public education about good sanitation and personal hygiene, with special emphasis on careful hand washing and sanitary disposal of feces. Next slide, please. Educate the public about good hygiene, hand washing before eating or preparing food, keeping nails short, and discourage nail biting in children and teenagers. So basically, all of these things which I have told you about. So all of these things are important, and all of these things need to be taught to all of the community members of our areas, including mothers, fathers, elderlies, and children as well. So the way forward for human beings, what should we do? There should be an integrated solid waste management system. So integrated solid waste management is the fundamental policy requirement in every country. There should be a centralized integrated solid waste management system, and it should be a digitalized system. So it should not be a manual system where you can get feedback within a span of seconds. An integrated system encompasses a well-designed network of components for segregated waste storage at the point of generation, door-to-door collection of waste to avoid littering, and storage of curbside, closed vehicles, or environment friendly waste collection and transport, waste sorting to secure recyclables. Use of composting technologies for waste treatment and disposal, and gas or emergency product engineer landfilling with proper leachate collection and gas capturing mechanisms should be there. So basically an integrated system. Next slide, please. So basically, an integrated solid waste management system should be installed in every region, in every country, to as a way forward. Then reduce, reuse, and recycle. Three R's of waste management. The production of waste should be reduced as much as possible through awareness, raising technological interventions, and the replacement of plastics with biodegradable materials. Waste is a product that is not useful to the person generating, but it could serve as a raw material for another industry or be useful in other ways. Therefore, as the next level of the waste management hierarchy, whatever waste is generated should be reused as much as possible. The third level strategies could be recycling of the waste products for reuse as alternative to fresh raw materials. Recycling reduces the waste going into landfill sites and hence also reduces the greenhouse gases emissions. At the same time, it decreases the use of energy in the production of fresh raw materials and is also a mitigation measure for that reason. So basically, three R's are very important in every community for the waste management practices. Next slide, please. So the way forward for human beings continued the production of refuse-derived fuel, converting inorganic waste into refuse-derived fuel to be used in cement factories, brick kilns, and other fuel-intensive industries can reduce dependence on fossil fuels and minimize the need for landfilling. So basically, what we need to do, we need to use the waste materials as a fuel in fuel intensive industries such as cement factories, brick kilns, or other fuel intensive industries, so that we do not use other fossil fuels and we use the waste materials as well. Composting and biogas production. The organic component of waste can be transformed into compost, land conditioner for agriculture and horticultural purposes. So the responsible landfilling is also important. We have already discussed it. So kindly, the next slide, please. Then treatment of hazardous waste, and there should be community training programs for the training of all the individuals related with the waste management practices. So basically, uh, hazardous waste should be treated before putting it out into the open environment, such as hospital waste, laboratory waste, and industrial waste. And then there should be a continuous community training programs in our communities, which we should keep on training the individuals about the good sanitation and waste management practices. Next slide, please. I think we are about to end our class. Have a nice day. Thank you. Any questions, please? I have to take a very important